Okay, welcome to the Vermilion Local School District Board of Education regular meeting, Monday, September 12th, 2022. Call the order, please.
Mr. Johnston.
Here.
Mr. Habermill.
Here.
Mrs. Russell.
Here.
Mrs. Stepp.
Here.
Mrs. Innes.
Here.
All members present.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4, public participation on agenda items only. Each participant is allowed 3 minutes to speak, and a total allotted time for public participation is 30 minutes. And then there is a sign-in sheet if anyone signed in, or is there anyone who would like to speak on agenda items only? All right. Number 5, presentations. Number 1, Andy Spillman, Director of Athletics, and State Representatives Joe Miller and DJ Swearingen to present commendations to Aiden Bath, Hayden Valenti, and Ethan Hendrickson and Jack Wells.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a second to thank everybody for being here. I know there was some mix-up with some dates and cross signals, so I appreciate you making time in your schedule. I want to take this opportunity to introduce Representatives Joe Miller and DJ Swearingen to provide some commendations.
All right, thanks for having us, and thanks to my colleague Joe for really doing the legwork and putting this all together. I have two commendations, and Joe has the other two. The first one's for Aiden Bath for his performance for indoor and outdoor track and field seasons. I don't know if Aiden's here or not. Oh, his parents are here, so that's sort of important. Please tell him. And then the second commendation we have is for Ethan Hendrickson for being named to the 2022 All-Ohio Division II First Team in baseball. So, and his dad's here. So. Thank you.
Pass that along.
I guess we'll stick with baseball. Jack Wells, Vermilion High School, under an impressive tenure of a long-term coach in Coach Keck, so previous colleague of mine at one time. His accomplishments, two baseball players that earned first and second team in baseball, Jack Wells being one of them. If there's anyone here representing Jack Wells, I'd like to congratulate them. If not, I'll pass this along to Athletic Director Stillman, and I'm sure he'll get this to the family. We also have Hayden Valenti. Hayden's here. I saw him over there. So you've done a lot. Indoor, outdoor, throwing. What else did it say here? You had, let me see, I'm going to get this. Since you're here, I'm going to point this out. You had third place in weighted throw at indoor and field championships, 8th place in shot put, 10th place in discus throw at this year's Division II OHSA track and field meet. That's impressive. So congratulations.
Thank you very much to you guys and the athletes. Number 2, we have Wes Weaver, the Assistant Superintendent. He will present on curriculum mapping and alignment.
That's as fun as track. One of the first things that I did when I got this job was subscribe to all the Vermilion social media channels, and found Hayden and Aiden as the state track meet, so I paid to watch that online. That was great. They're really good at what they do. So I wanted to speak to you just a little bit today about this document that I believe is in your packet. Describes the curriculum mapping work that we're doing at Vermilion Local Schools this year. I will just give you a brief overview of that. And one thing I want to mention, this came from Dr. Heil's kind of research into the district and his conversations with people that he's talked to here at the district since he started. And he and I kind of began discussing this some time ago and decided to move ahead with it. And this is kind of what it looks like. Curriculum mapping itself is a process through which teachers and buildings and districts staff create kind of a yearly map of their curriculum for every class they teach, including the processes and skills that are emphasized, the content that they're covering with essential concepts and topics, and the assessments used. The reason that this was kind of the choice to begin with, like of all the things that we could begin with, it's kind of the opposite of kind of the come on in, top-down initiative. You're just going to do this right from the get-go when we get here. It's the opposite of that. This is an opportunity for teachers to lay out a map of what they teach, and it's going to be kind of begin a process that it's really never-ending when you look at it. So the mapping process provides a view of what was kind of previously invisible to everybody, which is all those things that come from each teacher's classroom. Once teachers kind of do this for themselves, then they kind of begin to work together and they kind of begin to look at each other's maps so that they understand what's being taught where. And this promotes shared knowledge across buildings and so that they know what's going on in every building and every classroom. It enables us to directly address horizontal and vertical alignment. When the fourth grade math teacher doesn't know where the third grade math teacher left off, or the important concepts that got covered or didn't covered, then you've got you've got an issue there. You've got a gap. It also kind of exposes overlaps. When teachers begin to look at each other's curriculum maps, they can see things that are concepts that are kind of reinforced over and over again. And with so much pressure on teachers to cover so much curriculum, repetitions like that are things that can be eliminated, and so the process is more efficient. That's just a couple of examples. It's going to provide a structure, a foundation for us to do long-range work on curriculum, standards, and assessment. There's a lot of things to get to, but what the teachers are teaching in their curriculum is the basis of it. So the process is there. I won't read all of that, but our administrators started by kind of reading this book. Bought a copy of it, mapping the curriculum. I got a copy for you if you'd like one to read. But then we kind of previewed it, and the teachers led the work within the buildings before school started, and that work is ongoing. The kind of most recent thing that's happened is we talked to the principals. Dr. Heil and I did last week in a meeting with the principals about forming building and district curriculum teams. The idea is to kind of get people who are really into curriculum and instructional design and things like that, get them together on teams, diverse teams of teachers that tackle specific issues of curriculum as they come up, like those repetitions and gaps, and to also kind of advise a larger group at the district level, what the big picture is, so that we see, in math from kindergarten to 12th grade, what's the whole picture of instruction at Vermilion Local Schools, and so that we can address, again, weaknesses and build on strengths. So with that, I'll take any questions that you might have about that.
I don't have any questions. This makes me really happy to see that this is happening.
Great.
I appreciate it.
I think people have responded to it very well because they kind of see the why. They've kind of seen the
And
reason.
the need, yeah.
Agreed that there's a need for it, yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 3, don't go too far, Wes. Wes Weaver will discuss our drug testing policy.
So, sometime back, Dr. Heil and I had a conversation. I was looking at some policies, the high school's code of conduct and the athletic code of conduct specifically,
And in talking to Mr. Stillman and Jen Bengal about like the kind of the way that those policies were worded, the way the current board policy was worded, which was hard to find because it was misnamed on the board policy was actually named something else, but identified some areas there where there were some conflicts. There were some kind of mismatches in what policy says and what consequences are and things like that. So I got together with Andy and with Jen and kind of said, okay, so these kind of say different things, and we're kind of doing, I think everybody was doing what they thought was the right thing to do. In fact, in talking to them, I'm sure that's the case. But what do we want this to look like? Here's what the present board policy says, which I believe is about 10 years old. And in talking to people, I think that's kind of when it came about. And we had a conversation about what do we want that to look like. And out of that came the policy that you have in front of you and the administrative guideline that you have in front of you. The highlights of it are this. The definitions and the kind of most of the boilerplate language in there is just like everybody else's administrative guideline. But the big thing is the who's getting tested and what are the consequences for a positive test. And what we landed on there were kind of paring down the groups that are being tested or supposedly being tested to extracurricular activities and non-graded, ungraded activities outside of school to include clubs and things like that. So, and that's a choice. One of the things that was in the policy that really is just not in keeping with the educational principles that I think everybody here espouses was the fact that there were people in graded classes, band and things like that were actually, under the drug policy, you could be suspended from something that you had to do for a grade. And so that was kind of the thinking behind kind of taking those things out of the list of things that were tested. When students get drug tested, there's random tests just like have been going on here for a while. But when students have a positive test result, the first penalty for that is a loss of 20% of whatever activity it is that they are involved in. So if you're a football player, there's 10 football games, then that's two games that you're essentially suspended from. With the mandate, and this comes into play in each of the first, second, and third offenses, with the mandate that seeking chemical dependency counseling, number one, and doing what they ask you to do or say that you need to do, number two, and then just kind of showing that you've done that. That's the piece that I think ties back to our educational mission, right? And the idea that we want to keep kids safe. First of all, the point of having a drug testing policy is it's a deterrent. The second thing is, though, that if you test positive, if you've used drugs, if you have been involved in that and you turn up positive, then let's address that in a way that is beneficial to your health and to your safety. So there's that. The second consequence is 80% of a season, or 80% of an activity, whatever the length of the activity is, and then the third one is a calendar year. So within 3 offenses. So unless you're a senior, essentially, there's no such thing as the death penalty in this. You're going to have an opportunity to return to whatever it is, the competition that you like, and whatever you want to participate in. So with that, if there are any questions about that, I'd be happy to take questions about that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Number 6, the superintendent's recommendations. Dr. Howe?
Yes, I recommend item 1 for approval, please.
I'll move. I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Habermill,
Abstain.
Mrs. Innes,
Yes.
Mrs. Russell,
Yes.
Mrs. Stepp.
Yes.
Motion approved, 4-0 and 1 abstention.
And I recommend item 2 for approval, please.
I'll move.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Habermill,
Yes.
Mrs. Ennis,
Yes.
Mrs. Russell,
Yes.
Mrs. Stepp.
Yes.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Moving on to number 7, the treasurer's recommendations.
Thank you. Number 1, recommend a resolution to approve the financial report for August 2022 as attachment B.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All right. Taking a look at the general fund revenue by month. Through the month of August, the district received $8.78 million in general fund revenue, compared to $9.3 million last year at this time and $8.69 in fiscal year '21. The difference for this, the district did not receive Erie County's homestead and rollback tax payment in August like it did last year. As such, the district is on pace to collect its historical average revenue and will receive Erie County tax payments in September, just like it did in fiscal year '21. That tax payment, it's for $530,000, so that'll put us right back to where we were last year at this time. Moving on to food service revenue through the month of August. The districts received $13,000 in food service fund compared to $1,700 at this time last year and $314 in fiscal year '21. Keep in mind the district does not sell or collect, I should say, much revenue in July and August because we're not really serving any meals. We will see an increase in revenue starting this month. And then moving on to all funds through the month of August, we received $9.1 million compared to $9.7 million in fiscal year '22 and $8.9 million in fiscal year '21. Again, this does not include that $530,000 from Erie County. When you look at everything collectively, we're going to collect our historical average through the month of August. Moving on to expenditures for the general fund. Through the month of August, the district has expended $5 million in the general fund, compared to $4.5 million at this time last year and $4.8 million in fiscal year '21. The district is on pace to spend a little bit more this fiscal year than it has historically. And part of the reason for that increase, we had a large increase in our health insurance costs. Our supplies and materials have gone up pretty significantly just through inflation. And then again, we have a new negotiated salary increases as well. So all those three things coupled, they're just going to cost a little bit more this year than they have historically. Looking at food service expenditures through the month of August, we've expended $93,000 in food service compared to $95,000 at this time last year and $89,000 in fiscal year '21. Taking a look at this again, then most of that's just buying food over the summer and salaries. The district has spent its historical average through August, and I anticipate we'll continue to spend our historical averages throughout the month, throughout the rest of the fiscal year. Looking at all funds through the month of August, we've expended $5.3 million compared to $4.8 million at this time last year and $5 million in fiscal year '21. Again, the district is on pace to spend more this fiscal year than it has historically for the reasons I mentioned back before with the general fund. And then looking at cash, through the month of August, the district has a total of $22.7 million in cash, compared to $22.7 at this time last year and $19.9 in fiscal year '21. Looking at our food service cash, through the month of August, the district has a total of $311,000 in food service fund, compared to $89,000 at this time last year and $85,000 in fiscal year '21. Again, a big portion of that increase was because all of our meals last year were free and reduced, and they were paid for, subsidized by the federal government at a higher rate than what we charge. And then lastly, looking at all cash, through the month of August, the district has a total of $28.2 million compared to $26.5 million in '22 and $23.4 million in fiscal year '21. Looking on the investment side through the month of August, we've earned a total of $34,592.97 on interest, compared to $25,210.79 at this time last year. This year we've earned $9,382.18 more than we did last year, or 37.2% more.
Thank you. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Habermill,
Yes.
Mrs. Ennis,
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mrs. Stepp?
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Number 8, the consent agenda. The superintendent and treasurer recommend that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items. Action by the Board of Education in adoption to the consent agenda means that all items are adopted by one single motion unless a member of the board, the treasurer, or superintendent requests that any such items be removed from the consent agenda and voted upon separately. So that would be items 1 through 16 on here.
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Habermill?
Yes.
Mrs. Innes?
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mrs. Stepp?
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Number 9, legislative report.
I don't have anything because the leaders in the Ohio Senate, Ohio House canceled their if-needed session dates in the month of September, and the members of the General Assembly will reconvene on November 15th.
Student liaison report.
They have nothing this month since school has just come back into session here. We'll pick them up next month.
Number 11, dates and locations of upcoming board meetings. Meetings will be held in the Vermilion High School Commons, 1250 Sanford Street, Vermilion, unless otherwise noted. Regular meeting Monday, October 10th at 6 p.m. Regular meeting Monday, November 14th at 6 p.m. and regular meeting Monday, December 12th at 6 p.m. Number 12, public participation. The board president reserves the right to limit time. The public participation section of the Board of Education's agenda is specifically designed for the public to address the board with their compliments, concerns, and/or questions. The board welcomes your comments. If you wish to address the board regarding a problem, the board reminds you of 2 things. First, your comments be factual and respectful to the right of others. Second, before coming to the board with a specific problem, you should first address the problem with the appropriate teacher, staff member, or administrator. This meeting of the Board of Education is public. In public is the purpose of conducting school district business. Okay. Number 13, recommend a resolution for the board to move into executive session for the employment of public employee.
I'll move.
I'll second. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Habermill?
Yes.
Mrs. Innes?
Yes.
Mrs. Russell?
Yes.
Mrs. Stepp?
Yes.
Motion
Sorry, yes.
approved 5-0, and the time is 6:24 p.m.